Hello everyone! This presentation will describe the work that has been done within WP5 Impact Assessment. The results will cover the whole duration of the project, 42 months, and will focus on the ROI impact which derives from the overall project activities. The aim of this WP was to establish evidence-based for R&I policies measured by key success indicators. The main questions were whether ROI ideas are reflected upon and integrated by the ICT and SSH researchers in their joint activities and tasks, to what extent the outcomes of the joint activities corresponded to the ideas of ROI, and to what extent the habit activity increased awareness of the ROI ideas among all stakeholders. In order to measure the impact assessment, a set of indicators were developed by us addressing all 6 ROI dimensions, which are public engagement, gender equality, science education, open access, ethics, and government. To accomplish the proposed aim, the following objectives were founded. Assess the observed impact and importance of ROI activities performed within the habit projects, events, and external projects. Examine the attitudes of all participants toward ROI. Evaluate the barriers tackling ROI implementation, and assess the expected impact beyond the project. 3 main tasks and 4 main deliverables were included in this WP. The social impact assessment methodology developed by Van Klee in the year 2015 was used to assess the ROI impact in this project, aiming to identify future consequences of current actions that might affect individual, organization, and social macro systems. The assessment focused on all 6 main ROI dimensions as mentioned above. The methodology includes 4 main phases, which correlated with the project's activities. Phase 1, understand the issue related to the work that has been done in WP2, the ecosystem mapping. Phase 2, predicting the likely impact pathways related to the work that has been done in WP2, 3, and 4. Phase 3, developing the implementing strategies related to the all activities and events during WP3 and 4, which include the virtual matching catalog, speed dating, national, international, and thematic workshop, inclusive hackathon, designathon, and finally the common ground camp events. Phase 4, the final one, design and implement monitoring programs related to the all activities within WP5, which are develop assessment and monitoring plan, monitoring and adjusting activities, and formulating policy recommendations. To evaluate the ROI impact of habit within the project and beyond, we develop a framework to present the mechanism of the impact assessment of the project. The framework includes 4 circles of impact. The first circle refers to the events and activities which took place according to the project timeline. The second refers to the various stakeholders within the project. The third for the observed outputs during the project, and the fourth, the inner circle, to the expected outcomes beyond the project duration. Triangulation methodology was deployed and implemented using qualitative and quantitative tools, which developed to collect and analyze the information relevant for the evaluation. The tools reached different goals and targeted different groups and have produced materials of different contents and quality. The tools which were developed were online questionnaires to cover the attitudes of participants on ROI indicators within the habit activities. Online Delphi questionnaire among researchers, which are the external experts who are working with the Horizon 2020 ICT project, which involved ROI. In addition, event feedback, ethnographic observation, and interviews. All of these tools are available also on the project platform. But whoops! Rethinking was needed due to COVID-19 pandemic, which required deviation from original plan. Since most of the events were transferred from the physical to online events, we could not use, for example, observation tool. Therefore, we adjusted the assessment tools accordingly. We added more qualitative tools to be filled by the partners, aiming to provide more insight regarding the usefulness, ROI awareness, barriers, ICT and SSH cooperation, and policy aspects. Another tool was used to evaluate the impact by mapping the events by target audience, partnerships, and best practice. The assessment of the habit events is based on the evaluation results from 30 events that have been conducted during the project duration, with about 1,700 participants and about 490 respondents to the survey. The response rates were about 30%, which are completely statistical representative. The various types of events were categorized to 4 main groups: management events, community and knowledge events, and practical and experimental activity, and of course the conferences. The respondents' population were heterogeneous as we planned. They came from different fields of activity: 46% from ICT, 27% from SSH, 10% from the public administration, and the rest from other fields. The gender distribution was balanced across all events. However, among the respondents to the survey, we found a little bit bias. 40% were female and 60% were male. About half of the participants were between the ages of 25 to 44. The first issue we wanted to examine was the degree of awareness to ROI's approach among researchers who are working with Horizon 2020 project, which involved ROI. Unexpectedly, we found that while almost 60% of the respondents are moderately or very familiar with the concept of ROI, about 31% of them are not familiar enough, and 9% not at all. These findings raised the need to increase awareness to ROI approach through creation of collaboration between ICT and SSH, while emphasizing social need as part of technological development. Thus, it was important to examine the extent of collaboration between ICT and SSH communities in projects and organizations. What we found is that participants in the events perceived very high the additional value of SSH to the development of ICT products. However, most of the external experts, about 70%, indicated that the cooperation between ICT to SSH in project is moderated and less. And moreover, the ICT community is not very aware of the benefits of cooperation with SSH. The participants also mentioned the importance of creating mutual dialogue between these two communities, because it brings new viewpoints and approaches to the process of tackling social challenges via ICT solutions. There is also a need for interdisciplinary and non-disciplinary education for the future ROI and ICT SSH approach. The next step was to understand the level of ROI implementation in project and organization. What we found was that most of the respondents, about 73%, ROI is part of their project plan, while public engagement and ethics dimensions have the highest implementation rate. When we ask which of the ROI dimension is important for you on your project activity, we found different dimensions. First, sharing research findings, which related to open access. Second, the ethical issues. And third, educate young people, which relate to science education, which is really interesting. Following these findings, and in order to increase the implementation of ROI and collaboration between ICT and SSH communities, we wanted to explore the main barriers. The results from the online survey with the external experts in project show that the main barriers were: the first one, lack of incentives to implement ROI. The second group, which includes lack of awareness about ROI, lack of organizational culture with fostering ROI, unclear benefits from ROI, and the third one is lack of adequate implementation plan, lack of ROI competence, and the last one, higher cost of innovation expected from ROI implementation. Along with the need to understand the main barriers, we asked the participants several questions regarding policy perspective on ROI implementation. These questions were across several types of events. The results indicated that overall all policy issues which were raised were found to be important or very important. The most important issues are corresponding with the previous results, and we could group them into two main categories. The first one, regulations, to have national or European level policies on ROI. Enforce ROI within organization, and organization should dedicate budget for public engagement. The second one is awareness. Integrating SSH aspect into STEAM education, for example, or research should receive mandatory training regarding ethics and so on. The last part of the assessment is dedicated to the impact. Finally, we first assessed the impact of the events by implemented all ROI dimension, which found high to very high. The ethics dimension received the highest rate, which is not surprising. Usefulness of the events, which perceived by most of the participants as very high. And why? Because they improve their knowledge regarding ROI, extend knowledge about societal problems, acquiring new skills, specifically according to the events in WP4, developed cooperation. 90% of the participants felt that they will integrate SSH in their future R&I ICT activities. Second, the ROI expected impact, which was assessed by the outputs and the outcomes from the habit activities. The outputs could be described by two main indicators. First, audience-based indicators reflected the extent of exposure to the ROI approach through the project activities. As we can see, a large number of participants and organizations were part of the habit activities through various channels. The second is the products stemming from the project, which are the ecosystem platform, which is based on the European framework model, the 49 innovative ideas, which stem from all the events in the hackathon, designathon, the ROI best practices methodologies, as well as the educational training, and finally, policy recommendations. Going back to the key measurable success indicator table, we can see that all were accomplished according to the proposed indicators. Public engagement was reached through a significant number of participants. Gender equality, both in participation in the event and as active role in the project activities. Involved young people, which are the future generation, and designed a methodology for educational training for ROI integration. Published the project results, discussed and elaborate the issue of privacy and ethics with special attention to GDPR in light of emerging technologies and the need for foresight assessment, regulation, guidelines, and dedicated policy to enhance ROI in R&I ICT. And finally, the outcome, which is the expected future impact beyond the Habit project. We thought that the best way to illustrate the impact assessment process is through a metaphor of a tree. Establishing the ROI ecosystem platform, which provides the foundation, the roots for knowledge sharing and mutual dialogue between different stakeholders and different fields of knowledge, ICT and SSH, developing and conducting networking activities, producing innovative ideas that may lead to future projects, and policy recommendations to be implemented in different levels, national, international, and EU. All of these have the potential to establish future branches of activities and create an impact that will lead to ROI uptake on policy regulation and incentives, education and training, curricula, ethics procedure, raising awareness, foresight and technology assessment, and joint SSH and ICT project, and maybe more. So we'll hope for a better ROI. Thank you for listening.